All right, everyone, welcome back to the Creative Contractor Show. This is Dan the Roofing Man, and I am your host. And this is episode 3, and we are still in the empty apartment that we have while we renovate the other ones. I'm hoping we only have like maybe 2 more episodes left in here. Once we wrap up, we actually have inspection coming Monday. And once our inspection happens, I'm going to move my pod, where I'm actually building my studio. I'm going to move that to the other side of the property and then start building that out. In the meantime, I'm going to move this studio into our laundry room. And I'm going to end up putting a bunch of stuff on the wall to help with the soundproofing, hopefully get a little bit better lighting. So that'll be another temporary space. But that's kind of, I guess, that's just kind of how life works, right? So this episode 3, and it's basically a story about me, how I went from, I was never really a tradesman. While I did construction, I didn't grow up like my dad did, as a nail pounder, right? And so the title of the episode is From Tradesman to Entrepreneur, but it's gonna basically go over the whole gamut of who I am, how I got here, what makes me me, why I failed, and kind of why, I'm moderately successful now. So jumping into it, I'm born and raised right here in Arizona, okay? I went to Heritage Elementary, Ironwood High School, Glendale Community College, and Arizona State University at the West Campus, okay? Now, if you know the Valley, the West Valley specifically, my grade school, high school, junior college, and college are all within like a couple miles of my house. Now, growing up, I was what you call gifted. A 4.0 student. I don't know that I ever had to be all the way through 8th grade. And so I would always finish my work very quickly, and I'd just kind of be bouncing around like nobody could deal with me, right? Because I would literally finish first, and I'd get a 4.0, and they put me in the gifted class. I would still do the same thing, and you got all these people that are studying their butts off, and I would never study. I would learn the material, memorize it, go in, take the test, and then a lot of people thought I was cheating. I'm not a cheater. I just learned the material, right? So with that, I kind of got labeled as a bad kid, and they diagnosed me with ADD and ADHD, and they tried to put me on medicine and all this crap. And what it basically boiled down to is people couldn't handle me. I was too much. I was too hyperactive. Well, I didn't realize, I don't even know, honestly, the real story behind this, but I basically was raised like on sugar. Like I had the worst case of bottle rot you've ever seen, because I was put to bed with, multiple bottles of either Gatorade or milk or whatever. And it just, I don't know if my mom didn't want to get up and help me or what, but literally multiple bottles. I would just take one, throw it. And then I was like high on sugar all the time. So they didn't realize I was deaf until I got into kindergarten, and they realized that the teacher would talk to me, but I couldn't hear him. But I was smart enough that I could read the colors on the crayon. So that's how I knew how to color everything. But the flip side is I was freaking colorblind. So I was a freaking mess growing up. Being an athlete and being, not that athletes aren't smart, but I played sports and a lot of the guys weren't that smart. And then being smart and being in the gifted classes and being an athlete, I just didn't really align with a lot of people. There's a word that we are not allowed to use in my house, and that's annoying. I was called annoying my whole life, and it's just because I was too much. I was too much for people. So I'm very self-aware of who I am, but and I realized what a good mom was when I met my wife, right? And I look back on my life and all those experiences, all those things that I basically thought was bad about me are what make me who I am today. The way that my brain works, the ADD and ADHD and giftedness and all these things, that's who I am. I am exactly who I am. I wear my emotions on my sleeves. I'm a direct person. Not everybody loves it, but that is who I am, right? So go to high school. I played sports. I played football. I didn't play baseball. I tried out, actually didn't make the team, but I couldn't see the baseball, and I never knew why. My parents never freaking took me to get my eyes checked out, and then finally, my freshman year, I got glasses and then contacts, and later on in life, I ended up paying for my own surgery for my eyes. I played football freshman year, sophomore year. Sophomore year, I was voted by my peers as captain of the team. I played offense, defense, special teams, and I started everything. Junior year, though, I quit, and I don't want to say I regret it because it's very relevant to my life right now. I quit because it would have been the first time in my life I didn't start. And I ended up getting a job at Buca de Beppo, became a busboy, which ultimately led me to meet my wife, who I'm still married to to this day. But, playing sports, I had phenomenal coaches. I had some of the best coaches, especially in football, that you could ever imagine. Loved my coach so much that he was actually the officiant or pastor at my wedding with my wife and I. It's the only exposure I ever had to faith and Christianity and any of that stuff. And it was through the prayer that we prayed before every game, which is still the same format of prayer that I use with my kids. So my parents, my dad's a roofer, has been my entire life, and I'll be 40 next year. He's been a roofer my whole life. And, I went to high school. 9/11 happened while I was 2001, which would have been, I think it was a sophomore. And then growing up without money, because my dad was a roofer, and my mom literally never worked my entire life. She was always, trying to get on disability and whatever. But I didn't have a lot of things. And then once I got my job at Buca, I started making money. I actually think I made more money than my parents did. But I just saved it. I saved it. I put money away, paid for my vehicles, cash, kept saving. My football coach came back and asked me to play. I played my senior year of high school, where we went to the state championship. And I played football from second grade all the way till my sophomore year, started the whole time. Quit my junior year, didn't do any of the team activities, didn't work out, didn't do football, didn't do anything. Showed up my senior year, still, in my opinion, better than a lot of the kids on the team. They asked me to come back, and I rode the bench the entire year. Never had one pass thrown to me. I played kick return. That was it. And I went from a, captain of the football team to quitting, to coming back. It wasn't a waste of time. It was a great experience. It was a great experience that I learned. But during that whole process, I started making money. I dated a lot of chicks in high school. I didn't date. I never really had a girlfriend. I did, but I didn't. But parties and girls were my things. I never did drugs. I drank, and it was always girls, right? I knew for a fact, though, coming from the background that I came from, friends of mine were overdosing on heroin. I had other friends that are in prison for life. I have friends that have been killed over drugs. I have friends that have killed over drugs. And I'm talking close friends. And, I'm friends with everybody in high school, right? There was all the Mexicans, the Asians, the blacks, the smart kids, the jocks, the surfer guys, the people with money, the people without money. I was always friends with everybody. And because I knew all the drug dealers, I always basically just connected the guys. I never did drugs. I could have done all the drugs I wanted. Could have done them for free. I never touched them. Okay. But that's how I grew up. I had a lot of friends. I had friends that, once we got into high school, especially because I played baseball, football, basketball growing up, all these kids went to different high schools, and I stayed friends with them. I'm still friends with a lot of them to this day. But coming from the background that I come from, liberal parents that, my dad's a roofer, my mom doesn't do anything, a couple $100 a week. I knew for a fact there's no way I wanted to live that life. And I had already started making money at Buca. I saved up, probably $10,000, $15,000. I turned 18 and I got a credit card, and I saved up money. I went down and put $5,000 down on my first truck, got a loan, made every payment. I've made every payment in my life from that day. I have impeccable credit, but I did it on my own. You know what I'm saying? I decided I wanted to go in the military. I took the ASVAB. I scored very high because I'm smart, and I was still in pretty good shape. So athletically, I scored high on the physical, and they basically said, hey, you can do any job you want, except the fact that you're colorblind. Because you're colorblind, all these jobs you can do like this. So they wanted me to be a linguist. And I'm like, there's no way in hell I'm going to be a linguist. Well, because we were so broke, I applied for grants and stuff for college. Well, I lived at home, and I had a job, and I had a vehicle that I paid off. I want to go to college. Nobody in my family ever went to college, and I was going to go to college and pass, right? And be the first person to get a degree. So we were so broke, they gave me a bunch of money to go to college. So much that I ended up just putting it in the bank, living at home. I actually profited every semester. And then I started, so I lived at home, went to GCC for 2 years, and then I went to ASU West, okay? About that time, in December of 2002, I graduated in I graduated in May of 2003. My dad started a company, and I started working with him because I had a truck. I had gotten fired from Buca there's a big story about that, but I got fired from Buca. My dad started a company called Distinctive Roofing, December 2002. January-ish of 2003, I started working with my dad because I had a half day as a senior, but I also set it up to where I was a TA and a tutor for a couple of those classes. So I really didn't have to go to school. Teachers loved me. They let me walk on and off all the time. I kept my grades up. It was senior year. I was done. I'm trying to make money. So I start working with my dad, right? Decide I'm not going into the military. I start going to college. And through, from 2003 until 2007, maybe it was 4 to 08, whatever those years were, for 4 years, I started cleaning up job sites up on custom home lots, right? And then get all those cleaned up, go to the dump, run material, come back, and then I'd have nothing to do the rest of the day. My dad basically made me a deal. It's like, hey, I'll pay for your gas, your cell phone, and your payment, but you're going to come work for me. I'm like, all right, fine. My dad had started his company because he got burned by a couple roofing companies that didn't pay him. he was the installer, actual physical labor guy, foreman of a crew. And they did a 2-piece sandcast tile and clay tile. He's probably the only white guy that did it back then. And he was probably the best that I've ever seen at doing it. But then he didn't get paid. And so out of that necessity, he started his own company. Basically went after the same clients, started selling some work, but then he was selling and installing himself and trying to chase down checks and whatever. So I came in and I was running material and cleaning up and just doing all the low labor stuff, right? Well, I'd get finished and he's like, well, just go talk to the guy building the house next door. I'm like, okay, fine. So we're up in Whisper Rock, which if you're from the Valley, it's a famous golf community and it's right when they're starting to build it out, right? And I remember the lot I was on and I remember starting to talk to the builders up there. And I go across the street. I'm like, hey, we're doing the roof. Can we bid on yours? And they're like, yeah, please. So I end up selling that house. And then in that neighborhood, we ended up doing, I think, like the first, 9 houses, I think, in Whisper Rock. Well, then those builders build in different communities. So then we obviously go here. And then I just kept doing the same thing. So I think it was from 04, I don't know what the years are. It's in a magazine. So we ended up becoming the fastest growing roofing company in the country. And it was because I ran all the sales. Once you start doing the sales, right, then you become the face and the people start buying from you. They like, know, and trust you. And so the company starts growing. We keep growing. First year was like 170,000 in revenue. And then I think it went to like 700,000 and then it went to like 2 million. And we just kept going up. I think we got all the way up to 12 million at one point. Well, the whole time I'm in college, right? And I'm going to night school, which I love, and summer school, which I love, and then working during the day. So as time goes on, we keep adding staff, we buy real estate, and I just butted heads with my dad. We're just two completely different people. I don't think he graduated high school. I went to college. We look at business completely different. We look at math completely different. I ended up in business with my mom also. My sisters were involved, and just the whole situation just didn't make me feel right. And so I just, I go to my dad one day. I'm like, hey, Dad, I'm a third, you're a third, and Mom's a third. What happens if you guys die tomorrow? What happens to your 2/3? Well, it goes to your sisters. Why the hell would it go to my sisters? They don't even work in the company. They have nothing to do with this. I've grown this entire thing myself. I have all the relationships with the suppliers, I've done everything, but you're going to give 2/3 of the company away to them? It's not going to work. And at this point, we're butting heads the whole time. And so I convince him we need to sell the company. So we get to a point where we have an offer and this guy wants to buy the company, but that guy recognized who was really in charge, right? And it was me. And he wanted me to stay on. Well, for me, that guy reminded me too much of my dad. So I'm like, absolutely not. I'm not staying on with another one of my dad. This isn't going to work. So we end up killing the deal. I think that was 2009. About that time, we go through a situation where it's kind of like what's going on right now with the car auction and the golf tournament. We had massive storms in 2009 that blew the tents over the freeway at the car auction. And it did a bunch of damage, but those storms were so big, it gave us a bunch of work. So we worked through the end of the year. I'm just not happy. Like it's affecting my life. Well, then things slow down and then we get the 2010 hailstorm. Well, that just blew us through the water because in 2008, I learned about hail damage and wind damage and water and all these things with insurance. And I ended up so I did a whole street of houses in my neighborhood. And then I ended up doing 50 houses in 85302 because that area got hit with some really tiny pea-sized hail. And so 2010 hailstorm hits, all those people call back. We end up with 200 houses just in 85302. And we ended up just doing, we just exploded. And I was the first guy on the news. Literally the day after the hailstorm, I was on every news station. I was in every newspaper because I was the only person really in Arizona that knew a lot about hail and wind. And I was a local roofer. Also, a lot of these people already knew me from some charity work that we did. So they just wanted somebody they could trust. So we go through that situation. We explode. I'd already graduated college in 2007. I got my real estate license in 2007. I knew that I wanted more than just being a roofer. This whole time, I was embarrassed to tell people I worked for a roofing company. Like, oh, what do you do for? I'm an entrepreneur. But even back then, being an entrepreneur, people looked at you like, oh, that's just a word that people throw around. It's like being an influencer now. That's just a word people threw around, So I didn't want to say I was a roofer, except I was making a shitload of money. I didn't really want to say I was an entrepreneur because back then it was frowned upon. So I just told everybody I was a contractor. But at the same time, as much as I don't love the idea of college, I got my degree. I don't love the idea of college now. I needed to set out, get a degree to prove myself I could start and finish something and then be the first person in my family to do it. And I did that. I bought my first house in March of 2007. I graduated in May of 2007 and I got my degree. I got married in August of 2007. I got my real estate license right after that. So after the hailstorm, especially, we were referring a lot of work out for restoration. Like, let's say we did 12 million after that storm. We probably could have done 40 to 50 million if we just had our contracting license. So we got into that, got into water damage. I got certified in water, mold, structural drying. I got my certification from Hague for hail and wind. I went through the Xactimate training. I got lead and asbestos certification. I went through all the training you could do besides smoke and fire for restoration so that we could do all that work. We expanded into that. Our company kept growing, but still I could not stay in business with my family. I was going through every familial problem you can go through in being in business. If I'm getting interviewed, it's my dad, my partner. If he's getting interviewed, it's my company. There was never us. It was never we. Not that really mattered. Anybody who knew. But at the same time, from during that growth, you have big problems and people aren't watching cash flow in the books. And I thought it was being done, but I wasn't smart and savvy enough to know how to watch. And so while I'm out here selling, I don't understand why we don't have money to pay the bills. And that has to do with the way that they ran the numbers. And, some of it was bad advice from their CPA. Some of it was overzealous spending on things that they were doing. So go through this situation and I'm like, I just can't do it anymore. So I get an equity partner, go to buy my dad out. We get a business evaluation. It was way more than I knew it was worth, and we're fighting. And finally we settle on a deal, pay all the attorneys, the CPAs. And at this point, the company is now going down, which I told them, guys, the storm work's gone. We need to get rid of all these people. We got to get rid of all this overhead. No, Danny Grifford has no idea what he's talking about. Sure as shit. Company tanked. And everybody, I literally brought my whole family in to our boardroom in our building that we owned and said, guys, we need to stop this. And they all mocked me. Okay. Said, I'm done with this. So we get the deal worked out. My equity partner I was buying my dad out with, to this day, I have no reason why he bailed on me. What's funny is my best friend, who I was a best man in his wedding, was really close with that guy. And ironically, we don't talk. Haven't talked since. I haven't talked with my equity partner. To me, I know why that is, why we don't talk. I don't have a reason why he left me at the altar, but basically the deal didn't go through. My dad couldn't buy me out. He didn't have the money, and I resigned. And my staff had no idea that we resigned. It was all done with my attorney, and it basically ended up becoming an asset purchase where he bought my shares for assets, and I walked away from the company. I started over. This was in 2013 or 14. I told him, I said, you need to shut the company down. You're going to go into bankruptcy. No, Dan, come on. We got to keep going. And he just kept doing the same crap he was doing. He never looked in the mirror. He never fixed his problems, and never tried to help get things better. Like I held up my end of the bargain, right? I tried to solve the problems. I tried to work through things, but at the end of the day, for the sanity of myself and for my wife and then my son at the time, I had to walk away. So I resigned. I still have the docs to this day, obviously. Eventually, he goes through bankruptcy. Nobody knew I resigned because I didn't tell anybody, because I have clients that I care about, and my employee, everybody. And so I tried to help him to the point that even when it came time to settling debts, I actually paid debts off with my money. I had saved up about $100,000 personally, and I literally gave trucks, my favorite trucks I ever owned. I used those to pay debts. I used my personal cash to pay off suppliers and credit cards and whatever. He didn't do a damn thing. I literally, even though I had resigned and I was gone for a year, I literally dealt with the bankruptcy. I dealt with other lawsuits where we had sued people. I dealt with everything. And it took a lot of my time, money, energy, effort, all that stuff. I started traveling as a roof consultant, ironically, on insurance claims to Florida every other week. And then I became a consultant for Marriott hotels or their timeshares. Traveling back and forth, this situation finally settles. He closes everything down. We ended up selling our building that we owned together. We go through that whole process, and I'm traveling back and forth as a consultant, but it's killing me and my family. And I decided to start a shipping container company building tiny houses with a buddy of mine here, and that flops. It doesn't sell. We were too early. We were too early for tiny homes. We were too early for containerized housing or whatever. And so we ended up getting all this debt built up. It's in my name. He's paying the debt, but it's on my credit, right? And then I'm not making any money. And I just went through the bankruptcy with the roofing company. And I'm like, man, I'm killing myself going to Orlando every other week. I'm eating like crap. I'm drinking nonstop. I'm working all the time, killing myself out there. I'm like, I can't do this anymore. And he's like, Dan, this is what you need to do. And you don't want to hear this from me. He's like, you need to get back into construction. And him telling me that actually affects our ability to sell these houses because we're partners. He wants me to take time away from what we're doing to get myself right. Freaking A. So I do it, right? So I stop working in Florida. I come back here. I am driving Lyft and Uber at night. I applied for Uber first. Lyft hired me first, which worked out because they accepted tips. And I got all this debt. My line of credit's maxed out. I have no money left from the sale of the building. I'm at the point where I'm like, dude, I'm going to file bankruptcy and take all this debt with me. And what actually got me out of that situation was driving Lyft and Uber created cash flow. And then I was able to make money every single day. And so every day I would cash out and I would tithe. And if you look at my tithe statement, it's like, $10, $6, $17, whatever, create cash flow, right? And so then I get current on my payments. At the same time, I'm selling jobs through a friend of mine and physically doing the work. So I'm working construction during the day, selling jobs like I used to, driving Lyft and Uber at night. Okay. And then that cycle happens. And then I go and study for my test and I start my company and I get my license. And then I finally start doing roofing work. And I sold enough, like my goal was $100,000 in the first year, right? I could self-perform the work, drive Lyft and Uber, keep paying off work, whatever. And then I sold 1.8 million in my first year. I paid freaking everybody off. And that was it. Now, a long time ago, and I think I talked about this on the first episode, I went to my CPA and I'm like, man, I want to own multiple. I don't want to manage people. I want to manage companies, right? And even still, I want to own the company and have somebody that manages the people for me because I'm honestly not a good manager. I don't even think I'm a good leader. I just work really hard. I've got vision. I know the direction I want to go. I know the things I want to do. I'm not always good at articulating it, but I know what my goal is, right? And I want to be like, Rob Dyrdek or Richard Branson and these guys that have multiple companies that complement each other, that, create cash, that allow me to invest more into real estate. That is my goal. Real estate is my passion. I absolutely love it. But in the meantime, I got to feed my freaking family. So, a lot of people tell you have to focus on, you can only do tile roofing. You can only do shingle roofing. You can only do commercial. You can only do residential, right? At the beginning, I believe in that. But as you grow, I don't think that's the case. And that's been how it's been with me in roofing, contracting, real estate, investing, all that stuff, right? And that's really what I wanted to give you a background on, my business side, my business history, my background, and everything that I did so that you understand where I'm going now, right? So when I talked to that CPA a long time ago, I have D3 Ventures, right? And I want D3 Ventures to own all my other companies that I have. And he's like, well, why do you have all these, different companies? And why don't you just focus on one thing? And it's just from a mindset for him, he can't grasp it because it's not something that he does, right? I'm an entrepreneur, right? I have ADD and ADHD and I've got all these ideas, right? But you don't need to, at the beginning, you should focus on one thing and then basically step back and allow that to make you money so that you can focus on the next thing, right? Once you figure out business, it's all the same. Whether you're owning a restaurant, whether you're owning real estate, owning a service-based company, or online, whatever, business is business, right? It's money in, money out, and it's understanding the accounting. So we start in roofing. I go back to my partner. We have all that debt for the containers. And I said, man, I got on with this company called Open Door, right? I'm already doing a bunch of roofing work for them, but their general contractors suck. If I go and sell that work, will you manage it? Because I can't manage it, but will you build the teams to manage it? He's like, absolutely. So we had like $65,000 in debt. We thought it was going to take us a couple years to pay off. Either that or I was going to file bankruptcy and just take it with me. But he's like, yeah. And so we ended up doing all that work, right? And within like a month, we paid it all off. And the agreement was that we were going to split it 50-50. Okay. I sell it. He runs it all. We did it. And we did that on a handshake. Fast forward 7 years. Him and I have done millions and millions of dollars worth of work on that handshake and thousands of projects. And we've made a ton of money doing it. Okay. Now, I don't recommend doing business on a handshake. Okay. I've been up his ass about a partnership agreement on it, but he just does business differently than me. And he's like, I trust you. Okay. And his check's always there. We have a great relationship. What happened during that time though, was he was doing all the renovations. So I watched the general contractors not do their job and Open Door's like, please come work for us. So then we get into, so the Open Door's an iBuyer. There's Open Door, OfferPad, Zillow, Redfin, Knock. There's a bunch of these companies that basically buy your house online, renovate it and sell it. Okay. A lot of those companies have gone away. Some have gone public and then they failed. And I think that there's going to be a lot more of that coming up, but I actually love the model. I learned a lot about the model. I learned a lot about flipping houses. I learned a lot about finance and interest rates and how the markets affect everything. I learned a lot about it, right? I'm a sponge. I'm always talking to people. I'm always asking questions. I'm always figuring out how they succeeded and I'm always figuring out how they failed, right? We learned the iBuyer model after doing this for thousands of projects, okay? Well, then we get into the SFR REIT space, single family rental real estate investment trust, SFR REIT. Now, these are those companies where everybody talks about BlackRock and Blackstone. That's these companies, okay? We got in with them and they've got 3 divisions: service, acquisitions, and turns, okay? We got in as a roofer with one of them in their service department. Okay. Why? Because they found us from Open Door. And a lot of these people kind of go back and forth from company to company, right? So we get in with them doing service on their occupied homes. Well, then they went on a buying spree and they're buying 300-400 houses a month. And they asked us to come and do general contracting for them, like we were doing for Open Door. So now we're working as a GC on their acquisition side because they've got 3 divisions and they run them totally different. So as we're doing that, their flooring companies are not meeting our schedule. National flooring company, we have to manage their flooring guys on our jobs. And until the job's done, I don't get paid. So if he's not meeting my schedule and my jobs aren't getting closed out, I'm not getting paid. Hey, can we do the flooring? Please. So not only did we start doing the flooring on our jobs, we started doing it for a lot of other companies. Next thing you know, doing, 50 roofs a month, 30 renovations a month, and about 100 flooring jobs per month. Well, with both sets of companies, the iBuyers and the SFR REITs, they got the AC guys. AC guys are making a killing. So I went and got my AC license. So next thing you know, we're roofers, general contractors, HVAC, and flooring. And within this world, okay, this is not, I call it my sandbox, right? Within this sandbox, all I'm doing is managing work orders. Work order comes in, we manage it, right? Job gets done, we invoice it, we get paid. It boils down to communication, okay, and just falling within the parameters of what the client expects from you. But whether it's a roof work order or a flooring work order, for me, it's the same thing. It's work order management, making sure that our project coordinators and our project managers are doing what they're supposed to, communicating the way that they're supposed to, using the tech that our client requires, and then we invoice the job. That's it. It's just project management. It doesn't matter the type of project. Then as that went on, I've always been in restoration. They had occupied and unoccupied homes that would flood or had fires or whatever. We started doing that. So basically it was just us servicing our clients. But in the midst of that, we went from having 1 division to basically 5 divisions: roofing, restoration, flooring, HVAC, general contracting, all to service my clients. Now, roofing we do for everybody, but these other ones we really only do for specific clients. And that's because we recognized who we are as a company and that we're better off servicing within certain divisions the B2B as opposed to B2C, which is business to business or business to consumer or customer, right? So we're much better off on the B2B side and with commercial clients. It's just a different education process. And so again, I'm a roofer, but now I'm in all these divisions, and each of these divisions to this day produce between 6 and 7 figures worth of revenue. Now they each have a different level of gross and net profit, okay? But we run them all under one entity, right? Now everybody's like, why don't you have separate LLCs and separate EINs and separate licenses and separate insurance policies and separate bank accounts and blah, blah, blah. That's why we don't have all that stuff, because it's a lot to manage. You can do that within your company. We use QuickBooks. You can do that within QuickBooks under what's called the class system. Okay, so on my P&L statement on my balance sheet, it's roofing, restoration, general contracting, BAC, flooring. Okay, and then it's one P&L statement, but it's broken up by divisions. You can also combine it. So as that went on, right, we figured out that we could run multiple divisions and have different people run them. And then as long as you had the right organizational chart, you could do it. So we did it, and we did it pretty well. We always try to focus on having our company not have more than 25% of our revenue with one client. Okay. And that means, if you do $1 million a year, you don't want more than $250,000 in revenue coming from that client, because if they get mad at you, if they get a new regime, they go out of business, whatever that thing is, if they take their business elsewhere, there goes 25% of your company. Okay. I focused heavily on this. I was very proud of the KPIs and the product mix and everything that we built so that we could pull levers as, times went like this. And we didn't put all of our business with one company. What I didn't anticipate, and this is a failure, it's not a failure, right? But it's a failure. We tied everything except roofing to the iBuyer and SFR industries. The iBuyers have basically gone away. The SFR industries, everybody's after them. They don't want BlackRocks and Invitation Homes and American Homes for Rent, all these guys owning all these homes, because it prevents people from buying them, right? Combined in Arizona, they probably have, maybe 60 to 70,000 homes. Over the country, they have millions. And my contracts are national. So our scale was focused around that. Well, they all stopped buying because interest rates went up. So our company on the contracting side was tied to that heavily. Okay. So that's a learning experience for us. Now we anticipated a lot of this. We anticipated a 40% drop in revenue, and we had everything paid off cash. And then when interest rates dropped to like 2%, we took out loans. We sold off assets we didn't need. As people were not performing and they were terminated due to performance, we never hired those positions back because we saw the drop coming and we shrunk significantly internally. We also paid a lot of things in full up front. And so from a management standpoint, the P&L doesn't look great. We also pay our bills really far ahead. So the P&L doesn't look great. Okay. But the balance sheet, cash flow, it's all still there because we anticipated this. So as an entrepreneur, right? Like I've gotten into all these different divisions, and some of them I have a partner with and some of them I don't, but it's taught me a lot. I learned a lot about the buyer space. I learned a lot about the rental space. Then I got into masterminds, which I talked about in the first episode, and I got around some really, really, really smart people with family offices, people with thousands of units. I read a lot of books. I listened to a lot of podcasts. Real estate is my passion. And with my partner, because we learned so much about buy and sell and so much about buy and hold, honestly, the hardest part of that is the construction. Well, what do? We own the construction. You can find money anywhere. And getting the deal's pretty hard too, but having the money, renovating it and selling, that's easy. That is so easy. So me and him get together and like, dude, why don't we just do this on our own? So we get into flipping houses. Well, my crews, like they're not always busy. They're busy most of the time, but we just ran those jobs the exact same way we ran our other jobs. So we'd buy a house off market, renovate it, sell it, make a bunch of money. Buy a house off market, renovate it, sell it, make a bunch of money. Now, his investment thesis is different than mine. My goal is to own long-term real estate, and I want to have like passive income from it. I also want to own it for pretty much no money invested. So what him and I have done is over time, him and I have risked it ourselves. We used hard money. We had our own cash. Okay. We paid for all the construction. So basically here's how we did it, right? Find a house off market. We'd use hard money to buy it. In order to use hard money to buy it, we had to put a certain amount of money down, okay? Then with hard money, you have to pay a fee. So if it's $200,000 and they require 1%, some guys call it origination fee, some funding fee, but that costs us $2,000 to borrow that $200,000. And then you're paying interest on that every single month. So you've got overhead. They call that a carry cost, right? So you got to pay that interest every single month, plus you got to pay for the construction, and then you have to wait till you sell it. So you're paying interest until you sell that property. My partner and I were producing so much cash, we had such good cash flow, it wasn't an issue. And so we did this a bunch of times, and up until recently, we never lost. The only reason we lost is because we were negotiating a deal with another partner on that house, right? And we ended up losing like $5,000. So as a rental property, it ended up like being very lucrative, but as a flip, we actually lost money. So if we held on to it, we probably would have been fine, but we ended up selling it just to balance all accounts and be done with that, okay? So now getting into, after all the success and failure I had at a young age, getting back into this, right, on my own, getting into, construction and flooring and all these things, we start making money, we get into real estate. And what we're doing now is we're buying, like I'm in a multifamily right here. Okay. We have a partner, our partner has money, and, either way we can get hard money or use their money. Okay. He makes money on his money. And then he's also a partner. So we end up buying these deals, this apartment complex. I think we paid, it's only 5 units, but we paid like $550 for it. I think we'll probably be in it for $200. So we'll be up to, so let's call it $800,000 with carrying costs and all that stuff, right? Once we do that, it's going to value probably at 1.2. So we'll refi out at 75 to 80% of that. If we do it at 80% of 1.2, what is that? 120 times 8, 80, 940 ish. And we're into it for 800. Then we could actually pay off the 800, pull out another $140,000 of profit, split it between all of us. We own the property for no money. We've already profited. We have renters in here paying that rent down. So we would literally own that property for no money into it. So that is what my goal is now. I literally want to buy as much real estate as possible, have that passively bring me money. I want to still do the roofing because I make, good margin on that. But my goal is to step back and have somebody in place that manages all of my stuff, that I work very closely with, and they understand the business of roofing and contracting and real estate investing and single family and multifamily and, how to do a cost segregation study. Like that is my goal now. And it's kind of crazy to think about it because again, I grew up cleaning up job sites. When I started my company now, I was self-performing all the work. I've been into some nasty kitchens and mold jobs and physically doing the work myself on fires and muck outs and doing that, right? I've done so much of it, but I've learned the entire way. I don't love college, but I love trade schools and training and podcasts and reading. Like I love to talk to people and learn. And as I've done that, I've created a corporate structure that I believe is at a point now where I can pour gasoline on it, right? Because we've set up the divisions and the books and even though we've dropped, okay, we basically did the hockey stick growth and then we dropped, and there's a chance we'll drop again this year. We might have some growth. but we expected this. Okay. And going from a tradesman that didn't understand a lot of this stuff to a legitimate business owner and investor, it's a little crazy. Okay. And so that's why I want to do this podcast, because, it might be hard for you to sit and listen for, 45 minutes. Okay. The last episode I talked about was corporate structure, and that's some boring stuff. This could even be boring for you. Okay. But I have experience that I think could help save you time. And that's what I want to share. And if you do it right, I don't care what your background is. I'm listening to a podcast right now with a buddy of mine, Kurt Linnington, who owns one of the biggest roofing companies in the country, and Dimitri, which is a guy that I just started listening to. They're both immigrants. Okay. They both came over in a very similar way, and they're both uber successful guys. And Kurt is his goal is to be the largest roofing company in the country. And he's not far from it. He's got private equity behind him. He's built this machine. He's doing a great job. Okay, but he's a business owner. He treats his business like a business, okay, as opposed to a lot of tradesmen who just are, it's a lifestyle company, or it's just a way for them to feed their family or whatever. But your company's going to make you money, okay? And at a certain point in time, you might want to own a separate company. You can't do that until you've replaced yourself. You want to invest your money, you got to be able to do the research. You can't do that unless you take the time to look into that stuff. So anyways, that's a little background on me. I guess I didn't get into my personal life, but I will a little bit. I've ended up marrying the girl I met at Buca di Beppo. Okay. This Valentine's Day will be 21 years since we hung out our first time and dated for the first time. And she has been through everything with me. She is one of 3 people in my life who accept me for exactly who I am. She knows my past. She knows I'm a lot to deal with. She knows my heart. She knows the way my brain works. When times got tough, she started her own company to go out and make money. A lot of people hated on my relationship with my wife from the beginning, because senior year we get together, right? And immediately after that, I'm out, I'm in college, but I'm working hard. And next thing you know, I got a brand new Dodge Ram Cummins, and she's got a brand new Mercedes, and we bought a house, and we're doing well. People have been riding her ass for years about, they called her a money hungry hussy. And they talk about all the things she has and the fact that she's pretty and she's only after me for my money. She drove me to school, like literally in her Beretta. She drove me to school all the time. I didn't have a car. I was so broke. For some reason, she had a freaking car. She was more broke than me. She had a car. She drove me to school. She drove me to work. We have been through this, like everything. Okay. Now, we started traveling at a young age before her and I had kids, and we wanted to travel when we had kids. So her and I have literally been all over Europe, multiple places in Europe. Italy, multiple places in Greece, Spain, Budapest, all over Romania, Paris, London, been to the Turks, the Bahamas, Hawaii, all over Mexico, all over the United States. My wife and I have traveled and seen the best of the best and the worst of the worst. She is an immigrant that fled communism, that came here, at a very young age. What's crazy about the Romanian people is it's almost like a lot of them are more American than the people that I grew up with. It's kind of sad to say. But the people I grew up with, a lot of them have not left the neighborhood that they're still in. They haven't really tried much to get out of that, same routine that we went, our parents did back then. That's not us. I love food. I love tequila. I love espresso. I'm a foodie, like big time. My kids have been blessed to be all over the world with us. I've got 3 kids. Right now they're 14, 11, and 9. My one son's an athlete. My second son's an athlete also, but he's very artistic. And my daughter's she's a perfect mix between my wife and I. Like, it's as much as I am who I am, she's exactly like that, but she's just like her mom in a lot of ways too. So I've been blessed going through and looking at the past. Like, it's very crazy to be here on this podcast now, but having the experience that I have in business and in my relationship, and as a father, and as a foodie, and as a tequila connoisseur and espresso connoisseur and all these things, like, it's all part of the journey. The failure and the success, and it's all part of God's plan.